If I ask you to summarize your entire life story, your biography, into just 4 sentences, what would they be? In tomorrow's Torah portion, we find the way the Israelites saw themselves. Why? Tomorrow's Torah reading is very clear. Ve'aya ki tavo la'aretz, when you enter the land and you cultivate, bring the first fruit to the Holy Temple. It's called bikurim. Who remember in your Jewish day school? No? See? Oh, yeah. There was a competition in every class to fill the bikurim, and to give it and send it to Israel. So it's a mitzvah. So when you enter the land, the first fruit, you bring it to the temple. It's called the bikurim. And you should declare gratitude. So let me explain the image. You are a farmer. You have the first fruits. You don't eat them. You bring them to the temple. And you say thank you, but it's not just thank you. To my surprise, there is a fixed formula that the Israelite needs to declare in front of the Kohen, in front of the priest, as he presents the offering. This is the formula. It's written in the Torah. My father was a wandering Aramean. He went down to Egypt with meager provisions, and there he became a great nation. The Egyptians oppressed us. We cried out to God, and God heard our pleas and saw our plight. And God freed us from Egypt by a mighty hand and awesome power. He brought us to this place and gave us this land, a land flowing with milk and honey. And here I am, that's the conclusion. I am bringing the first fruit of the soil which you, God, have given to me. So why do I read these 4 verses? Because they summarize Israel's self-understanding. It's a short recitation, significant both for what it says and for what it does not say. No reference to the 10 Commandments, to the crossing of the sea, to the golden calf. It's the oldest and sacred rendition of Israelite story. Four and a half verses, a definition of how the Hebrew view themselves. If I ask you to summarize your entire life story, your biography, in just 4 sentences, what would they be? What would you say? It's an interesting question, always, but especially at this time of the year, when you are supposed to return again. The Shabbat before the last Shabbat of the year. What are the key elements by which you would present yourself to the world, the biography, the verses that reflect your self-understanding? What would you leave in and what would you leave out? I imagine I would say something like, I'm the grandson of Bela Gittel, one of the 6 millions. I have a sister. My parents were actors in Jewish theater. I married Gisela and we raised 5 children, and now we have a granddaughter. And I have been a rabbi for 37 years. So now I will give you half a minute. Summarize to yourself the story of your life. 30 seconds, half a minute. The 4th sentence of the story of your life. It's interesting for what you included and for what you left out. For example, why did I begin with one grandma and not the other? Why mentioning my parents' profession and my wife? Why focus on the number of children or the amount of years as a rabbi? Why did I leave out the fact that I moved to USA? And what about my aunt being instrumental in raising me? I'm sure that if I was sitting in a therapist's office, she could tell me exactly why my 4 lines are what they are and why I left out other stuff. I imagine that what I just shared is but one of many possibilities of self-narrative, the one I can share while standing on the pulpit in front of my people. I may have others, all depending on the audience, my mood, the moment of my life. The power of the stories we tell about ourselves is amazing. As human beings, we all have a storytelling impulse. There are thousands of conscious and unconscious choices we make to highlight conditions, tradition we have inherited, challenges we have overcome, and sufferings that we have endured. With that painful breakup, can define us? Will that illness forever change our outlook? Will that hard-won victory set up for success in the future? Maybe, maybe not. It's a choice that we make as we select the tales of our lives. No different than the Israelite of old. We build narrative identities that become prisms through which we see the world. Most importantly, ourselves. We are days away from the beginning of the new year. If there is one image associated with Rosh Hashanah, one constant visual image is that of a book, the book of life. L'shana tova tikatevu, we will say to each other, may you be inscribed in the book of life. Besefer chaim bracha v'shalom. In the book of life, blessing and peace. More often than not, we think of this book as being the divine ledger into which our names, please God, will be inscribed. That may be a beautiful metaphor, but today I would ask you to consider another possibility. The possibility that the author who we are speaking about is not God, but is you, and it's me, and all of us. And what is in the book is the story we have knowing and unknowingly written. For each of us, the year gone so far share a lot of sorrow, pain, some joy. That's inevitable. And much of the time, it's beyond our control. Those are the objective facts. Let me ask you the question of today. How have you made sense of those facts? Have you learned and grown from those experiences, or have you turned yourself into the victim, a person with a perpetually wounded sensibility? Explaining the meaning of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, I read Rabbi Cosgrove explain the following. The holidays are not here to affirm the narratives we have constructed for ourselves. The holidays are here to call our attention to them, to challenge them, and when necessary, to overturn them. There are in this Shabbat service people with loved ones with whom they do not speak, people refusing to reconcile. We can be so convinced of the righteousness of our story that we refuse to entertain the possibility that our story is but one side of the story. Remember the Israelite in front of the Kohen, the priest, he needed to tell our experience in Egypt. Pharaoh's shortcoming was that he hardened his heart, refusing to see the possibility that his reality could change, and he lost everything. The holidays are a wake-up call, reminding us that we are the authors of the narrative of our stories. Neither our stories nor our hearts should be set in stone. They can be written and then rewritten as many times as needed. That is the promise and the challenge of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. We must allow our loved ones, and we must demand from ourselves the responsibility that comes with taking authority over the books of our lives. Wednesday night, in our conversion class, someone asked me whether or not, being away 2 weeks from Rosh Hashanah, it was appropriate to say, L'shana tova tikatevu, may you be written in the book of life for a good year. Well, If you're asking God's book of life, then I suppose it's a little bit early, I said to her. But if you're talking about the book of your life, the one that you write, then yes, absolutely. On this day, Shana Tova Tikateru. Today, take personal responsibility for your role as the author of your life story. Have a heart to understand, eyes to see, and ears to hear. Take seriously that the authorial choices you make will, in no small part, determine your story for the next 300 and something days. And may you write and be written for a year of good. May we all have courage of heart to do so in the awesome days ahead. And to these words, let us say, Amen.